There are moments in royal history that stop the world cold. Moments so unexpected, so completely out of step with everything we thought we knew about a person, that they rewrite the entire story in a single breath. Catherine, the Princess of Wales, has given us several of those moments. But none of them landed quite the way that people expected from a woman who spent years being described as the perfect royal, the one who never put a foot wrong, the one who made the monarchy look effortless. Because here is the truth that the glossy magazine covers never quite captured. Behind that composed, elegant exterior was a woman quietly building towards something far more powerful than perfection. And when she finally let the world see it, nobody was ready. To understand why certain moments hit so hard, you have to understand the pressure cooker that Catherine Middleton walked into when she married Prince William in April 2011. This was not simply a woman marrying the man she loved. This was a woman stepping into one of the most scrutinized roles on the planet, inheriting a set of expectations so rigid and so unforgiving that they had broken people before her. The British monarchy does not bend easily. It does not encourage individuality. It rewards discipline, restraint, and an almost supernatural ability to suppress anything resembling a genuine human reaction. Smile. Wave. Stand straight. Say nothing controversial. Repeat for the rest of your life. That was the job description, and Catherine accepted it with what appeared to be remarkable ease. 4 years, the world watched her do it flawlessly. She turned up at every engagement perfectly dressed, perfectly poised, perfectly articulate. She mastered the art of the meaningful handshake, the warm but controlled smile, the carefully worded public statement. Critics who had initially dismissed her as a commoner with ambitions above her station were forced, one by one, to concede that she had earned her place. She was not just surviving the role. She was elevating it. But even as the praise mounted, something was quietly simmering beneath the surface. Because no human being, regardless of their discipline or their dedication, can sustain that level of performance indefinitely without cost. And the moments when Catherine finally allowed the world a glimpse of the real woman underneath were not moments of weakness. They were moments of extraordinary, almost revolutionary, courage. Perhaps the single most talked about and genuinely unexpected moment in Catherine's recent public life came not at a grand state occasion, not on a red carpet, and not during a formal royal engagement. It came through a personal video recorded in a garden, released on a Friday afternoon in March 2024, in which Catherine, Princess of Wales, looked directly into a camera and told the world that she had been diagnosed with cancer. The announcement itself was shocking enough. But what truly left people speechless was not the information. It was the way she delivered it. There was no palace spokesperson reading a prepared statement. There was no carefully filtered press release distributed through official royal channels. There was a woman, sitting quietly, speaking in her own voice, using her own words, addressing the world not as Her Royal Highness the Princess of Wales but simply as Catherine. A mother. A person. A human being in the middle of the fight of her life. The impact of that video is difficult to overstate. In an institution defined by its walls, its formality, and its historic reluctance to show anything remotely resembling vulnerability, this was seismic. Royal watchers, historians, and commentators across the world scrambled to find a precedent and came up largely empty-handed. This was not the way things were done. This was not the playbook. And yet, it worked precisely because it was not the playbook. People who had spent years viewing Catherine as a beautiful but somewhat distant figure suddenly felt something shift. She became, in that moment, profoundly and undeniably real. The outpouring of support from the public was immediate and overwhelming. And perhaps most tellingly, even people who had been vocal critics found themselves disarmed. You cannot maintain your cynicism in the face of that kind of raw honesty. But to reduce Catherine's story to a single moment, however powerful, would be to miss the broader picture of a woman who has been quietly, methodically, and sometimes invisibly rewriting the rules of what it means to be a modern royal. The cancer announcement was the loudest chapter of that story. It was not, however, the first. Long before she sat down in front of that camera, Catherine had been making choices that, in the context of royal protocol, were quietly extraordinary. They did not always make headlines in the way a major announcement would. But people who paid close attention noticed them, and over time, they added up to something that looks less like occasional deviation and more like a deliberate, sustained effort to humanize an institution that had grown dangerously remote from the people it exists to serve. Consider the way she conducted herself at the coronation of King Charles III in May 2023. This was one of the most watched and most tradition-bound events in recent British history, a ceremony steeped in 1,000 years of protocol and expectation. Every detail had been planned and approved. Every outfit, every piece of jewelry, every gesture had been considered. And yet Catherine walked in wearing not a tiara, as tradition would have demanded, but a sparkling Alexander McQueen headpiece that was contemporary, elegant, and unmistakably her own choice. It was a subtle statement. But subtlety, in the world of royal protocol, can carry enormous weight. Fashion historians noted that it was the first time in living memory that a senior royal woman had attended a coronation without a traditional crown or tiara. Some people dismissed it as a minor style decision. Others understood immediately that it was something more. It was a woman, on one of the biggest stages in the world, saying quietly but clearly, "I am here, and I am not simply going to disappear into the costume." There are other moments, smaller in scale but equally telling, that speak to the same impulse. Royal protocol has long maintained a formal distance between the family and the public. You do not touch a member of the royal family unless they offer their hand first. You do not embrace them. You do not cross that invisible but very real line between subject and sovereign. Catherine has spent years gently but persistently dissolving that line. During a visit to Wales, cameras captured her doing something the palace's own guidelines technically discourage. She hugged people. Not a stiff, obligatory embrace, but genuine, warm, extended contact with ordinary people who had come out to see her. A small girl reached for her, clutching the fabric of her coat, and Catherine did not step back or redirect the moment. She leaned in. She stayed. Observers who watched the footage noted immediately the similarity to images of Princess Diana, who had famously used physical warmth as a tool of connection at a time when the monarchy was widely seen as cold and out of touch. The comparison was not lost on Catherine, and whether it was conscious or instinctive, the message was clear. This is a royal family that knows how to feel. The personal dimension of Catherine's story cannot be separated from the professional one, because the pressures of the role have always intersected with the realities of her private life in ways that have been both visible and deeply consequential. Her relationship with Prince William has been one of the most discussed partnerships in the world for over 2 decades. They met as students at the University of St. Andrews in Scotland in 2001, and the road from that first meeting to the present day has been far from straightforward. There were early separations, periods of doubt, and the very public pressure of dating a man who would one day be king. When they finally married in 2011, the world celebrated with a warmth that felt entirely genuine. Here was a couple who had genuinely chosen each other, tested and retested that choice over years of difficulty, and emerged committed. That history gives their partnership a texture and a credibility that purely arranged or convenience-driven royal marriages have sometimes lacked. The years since their wedding have not been without turbulence. No marriage is without it, and a marriage conducted almost entirely under a global spotlight carries unique and extraordinary stresses. There have been rumors, as there always are in royal circles. There have been periods of distance and periods of obvious closeness. The arrival of their 3 children, Prince George, Princess Charlotte, and Prince Louis, brought both joy and additional complexity, because parenthood in the public eye is its own particular kind of challenge. What has been consistently striking, to those who observe them closely, is the evidence of a genuine working partnership. They are not simply 2 individuals performing the role of a married couple. They are, by most credible accounts, people who actually like each other, who support each other, and who share a vision for what their eventual reign might look like. That vision, as it has become increasingly visible in recent years, is one that takes seriously the idea of modernization without abandoning the substance of what the monarchy represents. Catherine, in particular, has channeled much of her public energy into areas that reflect genuine personal conviction. Her long-standing work on early childhood development and mental health represents an investment of time, research, and genuine intellectual effort. She has spoken about the formative importance of the first 5 years of a child's life with a depth of knowledge that goes well beyond the cursory engagement of someone ticking a charitable box. She established the Royal Foundation Center for Early Childhood, bringing together researchers, policymakers, and practitioners around a cause she clearly believes in. In an institution not always known for its engagement with evidence-based policy, this has been notable. Suggests a future queen who intends to use the platform she has been given for something more than ceremonial presence. The year 2024, for all the anguish it brought, also revealed something that those around Catherine had perhaps always known. She is considerably tougher than she looks. The months of medical treatment, the forced withdrawal from public life, the conspiracy theories and media speculation that filled the vacuum her absence created, the cruel jokes from people who did not know or did not care what she was privately enduring, all of it would have been sufficient to break many people. Catherine came through it. And the woman who returned to public duties later in the year was, by all accounts, changed. Not diminished. Changed. There was a quality to her public appearances, a directness, a groundedness, that felt different from the careful composure of earlier years. It was as if the experience of facing something genuinely frightening had freed her, at least partially, from the anxiety of maintaining a flawless image. When you have looked at your own mortality, a critical headline about your nail polish loses its power to hurt. The relationship between Catherine and the British public has always been complex and has shifted considerably over the years. In the early days of her relationship with William, there was a contingent of people who resented what they perceived as an outsider's ambition. The nickname given to her by certain tabloids during the years she waited for a proposal was unkind and reductive, defining her entirely in terms of her relationship to a man rather than acknowledging anything she might be as an individual. Once she became Princess of Wales, the scrutiny did not diminish. It intensified. Every outfit was analyzed, every appearance examined for signs of strain, every moment with her children both praised and criticized simultaneously by different factions of the public. She could not win because she was operating in a media environment that does not reward winning. It rewards drama. And Catherine, to her considerable credit, consistently refused to provide it. Her approach to the infamous tensions with Meghan, the Duchess of Sussex, is instructive in this regard. Whatever actually happened between the two women in the years before Harry and Meghan's departure from royal duties, Catherine's public response was silence. She did not give interviews. She did not dispatch allies to brief journalists on her behalf. She did not respond to the Oprah interview or to the various books and documentaries that characterized their relationship in unflattering terms. This restraint was interpreted by some as coldness, by others as dignity. In retrospect, it looks increasingly like strategy. By refusing to engage, Catherine ensured that she could not be drawn into a narrative she had not chosen. She stayed on the terrain she controlled. And time, as it generally does, has worked in her favor. Looking ahead to the role that Catherine will eventually assume as Queen Consort, and the role that William will assume as King, there is a sense among those who follow the monarchy closely that this particular couple may represent something genuinely significant for the institution's future. The British monarchy has survived centuries of upheaval, scandal, war, and social transformation. It has done so partly through adaptability and partly through the sheer weight of historical inertia. But the modern world presents a new kind of challenge, one that requires not just survival but active relevance. People are less inclined to grant automatic deference to inherited authority. They want to see value being demonstrated, not simply claimed. They want to feel a connection, however mediated, with the people who represent them. Catherine, more than almost any other royal figure of her generation, seems to understand this intuitively. She has built her public identity not on the remote grandeur of traditional monarchy but on something more accessible and more durable, the sense that she is a real person doing an extraordinary job under extraordinary pressure, and doing it with honesty and care. The moments that have left people speechless over the years, the headpiece instead of a tiara, the hugs and wails, the playful humanity she shows in unguarded moments, the courage of that March 2024 video, are not departures from who she is as a royal. They are expressions of who she is as a person. And that, in the end, is what makes her genuinely remarkable. The world has had no shortage of elegant, dutiful, well-dressed royals. What it has had far less of is royals who are willing to be human in public, who understand that the crown is better served by honesty than by performance, and who have the strength to act on that understanding even when every instinct of the institution tells them to hold back. Catherine, Princess of Wales, has that strength. She has demonstrated it repeatedly and at considerable personal cost. And when the day eventually comes that she takes her place as queen, it will be because she earned it, not through flawlessness, but through something far more valuable: the courage to be real.